Mentioned CEO of 21 Studios and CEO of the Redman Group. Today's host of the Redman Group, episode 82 on marriage and family for the Red Pill Man. On the show with me today, I have Ken Curry, a licensed family and marriage therapist. He was a workshop speaker at our fatherhood event earlier this year, the 21 convention. I got Steve the Dean Williams, as always, from themanmindset.com. Noah Ravoy, he's a relationship coach for men and women as well, I believe. And he was a Poland speaker at our convention in Poland we had a few weeks ago. And of course, DDJ from MissAndreaToday.com and YouTube at Miss Andrea Today. He's a workshop speaker at the upcoming event, our final of the decade in Orlando, Florida, is October 24th to 27th. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, good to be here.
Sure thing. So I wanted to focus this episode. We could go through, actually, let's go through a little, we had a tradition on the panel for a while and kind of dropped it temporarily, but let's go through what you guys have new going on in your life with your work. Like a quick 2-minute kind of stint. Ken, what do you have going on other than elk hunting with a bow soon?
That's right. That'll be next week. I'll be taking a week off with my son to bow hunt. I shoot a long bow, which is even more difficult than a compound, but I absolutely love getting out in the wilderness. It's hunting. I don't necessarily do a lot of killing, but it's just great getting out there and moving around. So that'll be next week. It's a lot of fun.
Do you eat them too?
What's that?
Do you eat them too?
Oh yeah, that's some of the best meat on the planet. That's some good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Personally, just for this event with the marriage and family, I want you guys to know I just had a month or two ago I had my 35th wedding anniversary. So I've been married 35 years. I'm a marriage and family therapist in Colorado, and I've been doing that for about 12 years now. It's kind of the latest iteration of my career. And let's see. I'm starting to actually work a little bit more on my website, getting prepared for the 21 convention here in October. Nice. And it says on my thing there, solidman.org, but I recently purchased solidman.com. So I'm going to start building that a little more of a online presence. And nice. So that's a big thing that's been going on with me. So, yeah.
Steve, what you got going on, man? You had the red line last night, right?
Yeah, that got the red line, hold it down while Donovan's on hiatus. Also, got to show the Red Pill Mindset on Mondays and kicking out show on Tuesdays. So just kicking it, going forward, eyes forward, and preparing for October, brother.
Nice. Noah, welcome back to the show, man. It's been a few weeks.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here. I just finished taking my H&C course, turning it into a textbook. And I have about a dozen coaches around the world that want to start using that to teach men agency in their own practices. So the book's at the editor right now. We're working on, it's written big brain, and we need to make it medium brain so it can fit the vast majority of the population, simplify some language and stuff like that. And make it so that it's, I think this is going to change the world. I say that male agency is going to save Western civilization. And that only works if I can project that out to a lot more men, much more than I can possibly train on my own. And so this is step one of doing that, is getting that out to the public. And within the next few weeks, I'm going to be father to 2 twin boys.
Nice.
My wife's pregnant. And so far it's all going good. And I'll probably disappear for a couple of weeks after that, though.
Yeah.
And
I thought they just came out recently, so I thought you were super busy with that. I was like, maybe that's why. But yeah, that's awesome.
I'm trying to get everything prepared for it. The smart thing is prepare for the storm before it comes. And I want to have it so, nice and chill and peaceful. Everything is organized and everything's in its place. So, you gotta reduce the anxiety. And it's a super pleasurable experience to have babies come home. If you're disorganized, children will amplify whatever is happening in your life. Like if you're a super organized person, kids will make you more organized. If you're a mess, kids will make you more of a mess. And so you gotta get your stuff together before they show up.
How dare you take responsibility and get prepped? Acting like a man. What's wrong with you, Noah?
Yeah, and men having some responsibility for their infant children. What's with that? You gotta, humans, we gotta make the nest as well. We're not like one of those birds where the the woman does everything. We got to help make the nest. Now she's going to bear the main burden of this. And this is something like people forget. They'll say, oh, the wife and the husband have to be 50-50. No, when you've got 2 twin kids coming home from the hospital, you got to be 110, and she's put in 110 to the kids. And there will be a little period where you have to sacrifice. That's the way it is. But man, I got another kid too. He's just turned 6, and it is the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life is to have. We have once in a while these breakthrough conversations where I get to really see the man that's developing behind that, behind his kidness. And it is, I would not sacrifice anything for that. That was amazing. Every sleepless night was worth it.
Nice.
DDJ, welcome back to the show, of course. What's going on, man? I hear you have some big news with your lawsuit.
Yeah, but before I get into that, let me talk real quick. I'm getting my Facebook group set back up, so my Facebook page at The Real Miss Andrew Today on Facebook is up now. Okay. Obviously, I'm rebuilding my Twitter with the new Twitter ID, so that's been kind of interesting. Obviously, any love anybody wants to send to those sites would be great.
There will be a link in the video description of the Facebook group and stuff. 100%.
Yeah. And then as far as the lawsuit is concerned, for those who don't know, I'm suing Google and YouTube for foreign interference, for violation of free speech, unconscionable contract, and I'm challenging Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act as unconstitutional. And so Google's attorney, after the press releases went out, a day after the press releases went out, Google's attorney finally contacted us, and we're moving forward there. So, I mean, they've initiated contact, and now we're in the conversation stage. We've got a court hearing coming up in November that basically we're going to be doing. It's kind of a scheduling procedural hearing. It's not anything of substance, but we may end up putting an additional hearing to deal with some preliminary things before we get started. I'll give you guys more news on that if and when that comes to fruition.
Nice. And you filed this in Colorado too, yeah?
Yeah, I filed it in federal court in Denver, Colorado. It's Lewis v. Google et al. Pacer has it on pacermonitor.com, and Justia has it listed. There's a few other places. It's a 500-page lawsuit in total. So for most people, it's probably the biggest lawsuit they've ever seen. But we wanted to make sure we had a bunch of information included in the lawsuit so that the court knows that our lawsuit is based on facts. It's not just based on conclusions devoid of facts.
And obviously, you've been trying to avoid the other mistakes that other companies have made, or other institutions trying to sue Google, like PragerU and stuff like that, where they get gets thrown out or something like that.
Right. Well, before we filed the lawsuit, I mean, there was probably about a year to 18 months of research involved when we looked at all these different lawsuits, and we looked at, like you say, we look at Prager, we looked at Laura Loomer's suit, we looked at Tulsi Gabbard's suit, and a few others. And one of the things we noticed about many of those suits is that while they're going after a private company for things like civil rights, they don't actually have the required element of being a government actor included in their lawsuit. And that's what we've perceived as a defect, and it's something that we have changed. So we've said, look, under civil rights law, under 42 USC 1983, there's no definition for government actor, which means that you can use Black's Law Dictionary or the plain English version of what that word means. Well, in this case, that means that if the courts go for it, that we can use foreign governments as government actors. And we have absolute evidence that Google is working with China, that Google is working with the European Union to enforce their hate speech laws on American citizens residing on American soil. Nice. And that's our nexus. That's the nexus that we're able to draw. And that's the argument we're pushing forward. And we don't expect, like many of the suits, because of who Google is and because of who YouTube is, we don't actually expect a lot of a lot of things going in our favor at the trial court level. So like I always tell people, whenever you go to court, you prepare for your appeal on day one. So that's what we've done. We have prepared for the appeal. We expect it to go to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and possibly the United States Supreme Court. And, we've also, for people that want to, assist in this, because this helps everybody, right? YouTube controls free speech on video. Google controls free speech on all its platforms. And so there's a lot of things that go out there as far as, what ends up like everybody being silenced. I think last quarter they shut down 15,000 channels and like hundreds of thousands of videos. Every quarter they do this. They censor voices, and most of these voices are Americans. And so if this lawsuit succeeds, this benefits everybody. Yeah,
I'm rooting for you, man, 100%. I know you had the PR stuff going out. I've been trying to share it. We did an interview, of course, on it too. It's on Red Man Group and 21.
Yep.
You can go check it out. With that said, let's get into today's topic, marriage and family for the Red Pill man. So in the Red Pill community, as part of the manosphere, marriage is looked down on, in my opinion, very frequently. And it's not just the Red Pill community. It's like pickup artist community and everything else. MGTOW would be notorious for this too, I think. And it's so looked down upon. And it was fascinating to me when I found the Red Pill community, the subreddit of a couple 100,000 men, that marriage was a small topic on there, but it seemed to be so derided, in my opinion. It had its own subreddit that was not even directly affiliated or controlled by the main one. It had been kind of like quarantined off into their own thing to discuss it. And so I guess my opening question to the panel is can you be a red pill aware man today? Can you be a man focused on truth and reality and still go out into the world and actually intentionally get married and try to build a family? Like, is that even a good idea, or is it just super risky and not worth it? Because in a lot of ways, that seems to be what the underlying thrust of what many in the space like to say. They look down on it so harshly, and not without, it's not just hot air. There's reasons that they're saying these things. It's not just made up nonsense. And that would be things like, and we'll get into that, I think, with DDJ, but the legal risks associated with marriage today. So I want to open up to the panel. What do you guys think about that?
Anthony, can you answer a question for me? That's just the whole idea of, Absolutely. Give me a quick synopsis of what is a red pill man.
Sure. In my opinion, a red pill aware man would be a man who is focused on truth and reality in spite of an entire culture and society that is dedicated to concealing that from you, that doesn't want you to know that wants you to follow blue pill lies, but that would be, I like to call those like feminist lies too. Emasculating effeminate things that young men are raised with, and even women too. In their case, it would be more masculinizing. The strong, independent woman mantra that you see on Instagram thousands and millions of times a day. Things that are depolarizing and against your own nature, your own biological nature and evolutionary nature as a man or even as a woman from their perspective. So a red pill aware man is someone who is fiercely focused on truth and reality and seeing through the lies that they were told today and that they were raised with. And that, I think, would apply especially to millennial and Gen Z young men today, because they were raised for the first time in American history after multiple generations of feminism. Older generations like Gen X and boomers didn't quite have that. It was still kind of forming into the nightmare that we see today, where even basic legal principles like innocent until proven guilty are barely survived in the U.S. Senate, like in 2018 with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. So does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no. Okay. I actually like to think of it as a red pill man as a man who is obviously very aware and desiring to pursue truth. And a big part of this is becoming I call it being an internally referenced man. Okay. Where I'm listening to my heart, I'm listening to my soul, the wisdom that's created within my own being. And there's a lot there. It's pretty powerful. And if I'm externally referenced, I'm listening to all the narratives and stories that are being told about who I am, about who men are, about what marriage is, about anything outside of me, and living to up to their expectations, living to please people, living to make sure everybody else is happy. And internally referenced man is what you're describing, the red pill man who's aware, self-aware, knowing the true narrative of his own life. And so that whole idea of being able to move into what is right for me, what is good for me. And for me, like I said, I've been married 35 years. I've got 3 adult children. And to Noah's point earlier, it's absolutely been the most profound thing in my life. I don't know who I'd be or what I'd be without those experiences. It's a really, really powerful part of my life.
Well, if I can play devil's advocate, I mean, you could have spent 35 years just slaying pussy left and right. You could have had all these you could have done so many other things. So I'd like to get into this more on the show, but you had options of how to live your life, and
absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, gosh, I know everybody here hadn't seen it, but Elliot's dad and at the patriarch thing, when he stood up and just said, family is everything. I mean, it's his opinion. Obviously, it's mine as well. It's something that family, raising a family, having a family, the meaning behind it is so incredibly powerful and significant. And what it does is my life is not just about me. It's not just about me getting laid or me having fun or me this. It's about me creating a legacy. It's about me having an impact in the universe. It's so much more powerful than just having fun or having sex.
Well, I always say that if you want to have, I got a lot of things to say on this. If you want to have, you want to be married, then this is the pathway. I mean, if you want to have a family, then absolutely get married. But if you don't want to have a family, there's no reason to be married at all. Period. I mean, that's how I feel about that. But all of this to me is, yes, it's about family, but it's more about your name and what it represents. And again, all the stuff about the government and the family court, that is 1000% true. But with that being said, it's none of my business because it has nothing to do with me as a man. See, the problem is you got to look at it as community versus cult. Now, we are together, and I talked about it yesterday. Us come together, we are a community. We are all independent thinkers. We come together, we talk, we break camp, and then we go about our lives as men, as individuals. What we're dealing with here, we got a lot of cults out there. And I know DDJ's Metal, but he's not all Metals, but there are people out there that I call cults that scare young boys into thinking that marriages are bad, relationships are bad because they were not man enough to handle the woman. So what they do is they spew their poison into the community to these young men, and then these young men get these impressions that, wow, all women are bad. Well, even if she's bad, it's still none of my business because what she does to you has nothing to do with I'm going to allow her, keyword, allow her to do to me. For me, and I talked about it, it started to me, all this stuff, these guys that got smart. There was a show in 1978 called Scared Straight. And it was about a bunch of young kids who were knuckleheads that went to the prisons that were scared about, okay, if you do wrong, this is what's going to happen to you. And what a lot of these guys have done is they have taken that same narrative and then they have brought it over to the 21st century to scare young men to say marriage is terrible. If you get married, the government's going to get you and family court's going to get you. Yes, that's true on the back end. But what they don't tell you on the front end is where is yourself? Where's your definition of yourself? Where is your self-awareness? What is your mission statement? Do you have a vision statement? Do you have a value statement? None of these guys have that because, see, what the cults do is that they feed on these young boys who are looking to be a part of something. I don't want people to be a cult. I want them to learn how to be a community, learn how to be an individual, but stop believing the bullshit. Because here's the truth, and I just want to say this. Yes, women are terrible. Yes, women can do bad things too. But at the end of the day is this. Are you going to allow her to do that? And that's the problem with a lot of guys. They don't take responsibility for allowing, keyword allow. A woman can't do anything to you that you don't allow her to do. And it starts when y'all first begin to meet, you first begin to date, and you first get in a relationship. You know she ain't shit, but yet you push forward, you give her gifts, you kiss her ass, and then when things don't work out, she's taking you to court and all this other stuff, then you want to cry about it instead of fixing yourself. If you fix yourself and become more of a community and stop following these cult leaders who can't even get a woman if a woman is in front of their face, then they would be much better.
Holy shit. Yeah, that was a great rant.
Can you imagine our ancestors saying, well, you know, hunting woolly mammoth is really risky. I mean, I could get killed hunting a woolly mammoth. And there's some guy in the camp that goes, you know, hunting woolly mammoth isn't rational. We should pick berries. We're going to do a lot better picking berries. Just say to picking berries, just go your own way from the hunters, pick berries, and that's fine.
They're doing it now. Eat grass.
Yeah, we'll go off with the women and pick berries or whatever.
Yeah, eat the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, managing risk is what men do.
That's exactly right.
That's what we do. We manage risk. We tame chaos. You know, if we can't manage a woman and tame her and tame ourselves, mostly we need to tame ourselves. If we can't do that, I mean, then it makes a lot of sense. Go your own way if you can't do it. There are men who go their own way because they have other goals.
Yeah.
But there are men who go their own way because they're afraid. And that is not a masculine thing. You know, if I was a young single guy, I would probably be more or less MGTOW until I got myself to a level where I could get a woman that I could trust.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep, does.
But
how dare you?
Major life decisions driven by fear, that's not masculine.
Say it again, Noah.
Making major life decisions driven by fear is not masculine.
That's right. Yeah.
It's not that the fear is stupid. The fear can be legitimate. But the fear is there to instruct you that there's danger. Then you need to overcome the fear and manage that danger, manage that risk. You know, people say the biggest thing people say to me is divorce is like 50-50 chance of failure. And I'm like, no. It's 0 chance of failure, 100 chance of failure. And the average between the two of us is 50-50. Now, I can help you lower that chance to near 0. There are things you can do to lower your chance of getting divorced to pretty near 0. And there are things you can do to pretty much guarantee you're going to get divorced. Yeah. It's not flipping a coin. It's not random chance. You know, go hunting the woolly mammoth was not random chance. There were some guys who were awesome at it and some guys who got squashed in the first try. Yeah.
So, Noah, on the issue of fear, you're saying that fear should be informative and not dictatorial for your actions to control it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fear, you know, fear, anxiety, stress, all of these so-called negative emotions, they exist for an evolutionarily positive reason. We get those to tell us anxiety, something's wrong in your life and you need to fix it. Anxiety and fear are almost the same thing. It's just one's chronic and one is acute. You get that. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with dangerous people. You get that that feeling. You're like, oh shit, if I make a mistake here, I'm not walking away from this. And that puts you on your toes. Maybe you stop acting like an idiot, or maybe you just get out of there. You know, that
my issue with red flags seems to be when I see them, I don't run away from them. I tend to light them on fire. So
because you're and you are a very dominant guy, and so you see a problem, you want to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, let me jump in here.
You're a leader in the manosphere because you want to go and fix things and make things better.
Yep.
And that is really good. But look at Donald Trump, how many wives he's had. Okay. The leader, he needs a few guys around him to say, you can't manage that woman the way you can manage your business, the way you can manage a country, because it's a different situation. And we need that help, that community that was being mentioned earlier by Steve.
Yeah.
Well, and let me jump in here.
Go ahead.
Because, you know, I mean, what you guys are talking about is not actually the majority of that community. And what I mean by that is that there is a very vocal group of YouTubers online who identify as MGTOW, but they're not. And they do everything Steve has said. They do create a cult of personality. And when you watch their videos oftentimes, especially their live streams, they don't turn into any kind of lessons. They turn into bitch sessions. And they're sort of like an un-PC version of a TEDx talk. You ever watch a TEDx talk? There's no solutions on TEDx talk. It's feelings, it's emotions, and it's just, you know, I said a bunch of platitudes, clap for me.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of, and you see this not just in the stated MGTOW community. And I believe there's a difference between the stated MGTOW community and the unstated MGTOW community. And there are guys who they go MGTOW for a while, like what Noah said, and then they turn around later and they say, okay, now it's time for me to get married. I did, and I learned the lessons. I learned to mitigate risk. I learned to see what the field looks like. And now, you know, I know where to avoid the holes and the pits and things like that. I think I can take that chance now. But I think that the other side of it is that when we talk about a lot of the people that follow this, then yeah, the fear can become irrational, and it can become extreme, and it can become an issue. But I think there's a flip side of that as well. And the flip side of that is that, you know, feminism has been destroying the family since the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And so we have a half a century or more than a half century now of broken families. And I believe that, you know, myself included, I believe that when you destroy a family, it impacts that family for generations. Mm-hmm. And so what ends up happening, like, you know, you see a divorced mom, the divorced mom will raise a child who gets divorced, a daughter, that daughter raises another daughter who's divorced. And now you have 3 generations of divorced women because they don't know how to have a relationship. And I agree with Noah that there are things as a man that you can do to mitigate risk in your marriage. But I also believe that the reality is at the end of the day, if the female wants to leave you and that divorce does happen, you know, you're done. I spoke to a guy yesterday. Okay. He's got a, what's going on, Steve?
I know, right? What do you got, Steve?
Before we get,
Steve's like, fuck this MGTOW guy.
I want to add a comment.
I hear what you're saying, but so what if she, if she wants to leave?
Well, hear me out. Hear me out.
All right. So you finish.
Yeah. I get it. And I know we disagree on this, and I respect.
I'll say something
like this. You know,
go ahead.
This guy, his divorce was amicable. He did not get divorce raped. But they were trying to sell a house, and the house didn't get solved in the divorce. And so, because the house didn't get solved in the divorce, he went to an attorney later, and he says, "I don't understand, you know, how this happened. This was an oversight. It was malpractice on the attorney's fault, and the attorney didn't care, and nobody really cared. And so this guy ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in his house because the professional that he chose was not willing to litigate for him. And I'm not blaming feminism for that per se, but there are a lot of situations where a guy will go into a family court situation and the attorney will say one thing behind the scenes. And then when you finally get in front of the judge, he pulls his pants around his ankles and screams, "Give it to me." So, you know, I see this and I'm like, okay, so that's the issue. Now I will say this, you know, yeah, I am a man going my own way, but in chapter 3 of my book, The Feminist Lie, I compare and contrast biological intact families where the children are raised with Christian values. I contrast that with the single parent families created by feminism. And you look at it from a societal level and you realize that families are what make communities safe and what make communities prosperous. So if that's the foundation of community, and that's the foundation of a county and a state and a federal government, then that's what you want to push for societal reasons, because that's what makes the most sense. And you look at the areas that adopt a family adverse mindset, and they adopt this. And again, some of this is the MGTOW community, and some of this is going to be the feminist community, because like I said, there's been a war on men, marriage, and family for half a century. Mm-hmm. But you have to be able to keep those family values to push forward. But again, it's a scenario where it's going to be a fight at some point, because when you break down the family, you increase the crime rate of your community, you increase the welfare state, you increase the poverty level. People get desperate, and now all of a sudden, you know, people act in their own self-interest, and then they start carjacking and robbing and doing drugs and everything else. I mean, it all goes to pot. You look at all these leftist cities and you can see it. You can see it in Los Angeles. You can see it in San Francisco. You can see it in Seattle, in Baltimore, in Chicago, and in Detroit. And I'm not saying that all those places are third world wastelands. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that those crime rates definitely impact those cities, and they create an untenable and an unsustainable situation. So you, as a man, you have to have personal values. You have to be able to assess risk. And I do agree with Steve when it comes to as a man, you have to know how to choose a decent woman in order to have a good relationship. You know, I've been married twice. I've been divorced twice. And my first marriage was all my fault. It was all my fault. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. It was my fault. It was my mistake. I got married for the wrong reasons. I was young, dumb, and full of cum. And that's what ended up happening. The second marriage was a different animal entirely. I chose the right woman. She was an officer in the Young Republicans Party. She was a traditionalist. She was really into family. We were together for 21 years. The last 3 years of our relationship, she was a abortion promoting Democrat who voted for Obama, and she did a complete 180-degree turn. And it wasn't necessarily that we didn't have family values. We went to church and we did all those other things. It was that the society we lived in was the wrong place to live. So I think that when you look at some of these places, especially some of the cities I've mentioned, in some of those cities, yeah, I would never raise a family there. Looking back on it and knowing what I know now and knowing that I'm not as ignorant, you know, as I was then, I would go to a red state and I would raise a family in a red state. I would not raise a family in a blue state. I would not raise a family in New York City or in California or in Washington State, you know, because like, for example, in North Carolina, if your girl cheats on you, you could sue the guy who she cheated with. So like, not all the laws in all the places are bad. And you do have to learn how to mitigate risk.
If I can interject for a second, I do want to state that I've been married myself, actually. I forget this sometimes. It's been several years. But I actually was able to exit that situation pretty well and not get screwed over by any kind of court system. And
your
argument about community being extremely important. Like, I'm sure that I won't get divorced because my wife and I have set it up as mutually assured destruction. Like, if I left my wife, my male friends wouldn't speak to me anymore. If she left me, her family wouldn't speak to her. I guarantee you. It would ruin her relationship with her kids. We have it set up as mutually assured destruction. Everyone that we're friends with is pro-marriage and anti-cheating. So
and that's a strong community that you need.
What I wanted to just get in here real quick is that it's possible to exit a marriage today and not get. Now, DDJ did this twice successfully as well. He even won custody of his children, I believe, if I'm not misinterpreting that. And I was able to exit myself as well and not lose any kind of finances or any serious problems like that. And I was not falsely accused of domestic violence or falsely accused of rape or anything like that. And I actually had protection set up in place for that because I was very concerned she would try to do that, based on my experience after reading the men's rights community and the manosphere and stuff like that. So it is possible to exit these things if they fall apart for whatever fucking reason, including your own damn fault.
But Anthony, it's also possible, guys, get your crayons out. I don't care if it's blue, red, green, or purple state. It doesn't matter to a man, and this is what I'm talking about. You know what? Sometimes the world tells y'all things and y'all don't see. There's a movie out there right now called It Chapter 2. And what that and it's about a clown, okay, that gets power from the fears of everybody else. All y'all are doing is scaring these people. You can get married in any state you want to get married in, guys. You don't have to worry about feminism. Look, if you want to worry about feminism, then you need to worry about a mouse getting chased by an anaconda somewhere in the damn Rio Valley somewhere or somewhere in Mexico, if that's the case. Feminism has nothing to do with you unless you put the fear and believe the stories. Yeah, DDJ told a story about a guy, but let's ask the question about the guy. Did he have the values? Was he soft? Did he have a spine? And I can tell you right now, no, he didn't. You can tell he didn't because when his woman bit the gold and realized he was weak, he was soft, he didn't have any standards or values, she did what anybody would do over a weak person, and that's walk all over them. See, this is what I'm talking about. Looking at the end result. Yes, it happened to him, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen to anybody watching this thing who stands on their name. And y'all,
right. And I'm not saying that men shouldn't get married. I'm saying they should know the risk, right? I mean, we wear seatbelts in cars for a reason,
right?
You know, it's not because we're cucks. What it is that because we know that there's risk, so you mitigate the risk. And that's what I'm saying. And I agree with you.
No, but I agree with you too. You have to mitigate the risk. But that's the thing, DDJ. You can't mitigate something if you don't know who you are. That's what I'm saying. These guys have no sense of self, and they're walking like zombies in this world trying to be a part of something. Listen, again, this is why I say we all of us right now, and I respect y'all, we're community. We are coming together, helping young men understand things. But outside of us, you've got others, bald-headed with beards, driving around cars, telling everybody, don't get married, divorce is terrible, single mothers are terrible, and all this other stuff with the rest of their little butt buddies, right? And these guys are coming around believing the story that is being told because they feel like, wow, this guy has 10,000 subscribers, so what he's saying has to be real. And what they're doing is getting a false sense of reality. And then here's the bad thing. They have to go out into the world. Life doesn't care about you, me, Anthony, nobody on this panel. Life doesn't care about us. It's how we navigate through life, and that's how you win. These young men are never taught to have the tools that a man needs to navigate. And like I was saying, DDJ, no, and you know, I love you, my boy. We good.
Oh yeah.
I don't want young men to think they can't go into a red or a blue state because, you know, I got to dip my foot in the water before I can even see if I can get a woman. No, man. I don't care about the state. I don't care about the government. I don't care about family court because it will never get to that point with me. If you want to go, bye. But the thing is, it's the preventative maintenance we've got to teach these boys to do in the front end, so they will never, she wouldn't even get a key to your house when she's disrespectful, because too many men are going for love relationships. I don't want a love relationship. I need to know if she's worth my time first. I want to know if she's worth my attention. Then I will fall into a respect relationship. And then if she's worthy, keyword, worthy of my last name, worthy of my sperm, then she will get my love. But they do everything wrong because they don't know any better.
Steve, I've always loved your focus on the last name. I've never seen anyone else in the manosphere focus on this. And the sperm too is funny, but it's real as well. But the last name is really, I think it's lost in my generation. I didn't grow up hearing that kind of talk from anybody.
Yeah, real quick, I was going to say this. It's lost because think about this, guys. If your great-great-grandfather thought like most people do today, most of you guys wouldn't even be born right now. But because of what your great-great-grandfather thought of himself and his legacy and his last name and his bloodline, his arrogance to keep his bloodline going, then this would not even be an issue. But because we're in a situation where it's community versus cult, where the cults are telling you it's bad to get married, it's bad to be with this kind of woman, it's bad to be that, they're just scaring these young boys. And then what these boys do, they'll say, okay, I want a relationship. They'll go out in the life and like the TV, like the movie It, they see a woman and what are they doing? Giving her power based off of their fears, walking on eggshells, not standing on any principles, laws, rules, codes, and narratives. So this is what the problem is, man. And this is why we have guys like us to wake these guys the fuck up, man.
That was awesome. I want to add too that when I split up from my ex-wife and then the video came out and all this shit, it's on YouTube and all that. People can go see it. Speech, but people are really surprised in my personal life on Facebook, where there's a lot of real life friends from childhood, high school, college, and things like that. They were very surprised that I was actually still supportive of marriage as a possibility in anyone's life. They thought I was just very negative against it, and I was not at all. I was like, yeah, for the right reasons and the right decisions and the right choices, go ahead, you should do it, especially to build a family. And I think building a family outside of that idea, legally, I'm not supportive of it at all, but in terms of actual the conceptual framework of it, I think it's fantastic. And I've never been opposed to that, even at the most reeling anger point of my life. And in response to that, that very nightmarish, screwed up, bizarre scenario I had.
Well, and I want to make sure something else is abundantly clear too. Like, I don't promote marriage for myself because of what I've been through, because I'm not going to assess that risk anymore. I'm just I'll date and do whatever, but I'm not going to get married. But I have had my kids. I did win custody in both divorces. So I'm not that concerned about it. And as far as men are concerned, I'm not opposed to marriage for other men, but I think you got to mitigate the risk. I mean, that's part of Red Man Group. It's part of 21 is you got to learn where everything is so that you know what the risk is. There's a reason why you don't do 90 miles an hour, around a twisty canyon road that, you're going to fly off the side of the cliff for, so you gotta make sure that you're doing and making smart decisions. And again, you have values and commitment, and you're concerned about your legacy. And yeah, if you're concerned about your legacy, absolutely get married. You're concerned about carrying on your name, absolutely get married if you do it right. But if you're not, I agree with Steve. There's no reason to get married.
Well, business is risky. Business is risky. 4 out of 5 businesses fail. Hey, Anthony, setbacks can happen, and it can 1 minute you're high, and the next minute you get a setback, and the next minute you're back up again. Mm-hmm. And that isn't a reason. Like, I've met guys. I met this one guy. He was in his 50s. I met him when I was a kid, and he's like, I had 7 failed businesses before I was 40, and now I'm a millionaire. Mm. And what it was, you can get in a lot of trouble. You can go to jail for a failed business if you got investors, because you can be charged with fraud and end up in jail. Executives create 2 to 3 major criminal mistakes every single day, according to research that 'cause there's no way you can always do what's legal, because the law often conflicts. If everyone said running a business is dangerous, running a business is high risk, and therefore I won't do it, we wouldn't have any businesses.
This is a good analogy. I've thought of it before.
What we do is we say, no, I'm going to get the right partner. I'm going to get the right lawyer. I'm going to get the lawyer before I need the lawyer. I'm going to get the accountant now at the beginning. I'm going to set it up right. I'm going to actually plan it. Most people don't do any due diligence when they get married. It's like literally, it's like the divining rods to find water, only it's like their dick. It's like they're looking like this, wherever it points, that's where they drill. And they're looking based on whatever they feel like. It's not a masculine way to make this decision. You got to do your due diligence, check her out, check her background. And yeah, it's true, women can change. That has a lot to do with who you allow her to be friends with.
Yeah, they're gonna respond to you as well, right? As a woman, they want to respond to your masculinity and shape to that in many ways.
I'm glad women change, because if you're a strong man, that means they're going to conform to you.
Exactly.
Right. That's right.
If I don't want a guy, I want a woman. Women are soft, men are hard. That's the way it is. Mm-hmm. They do conform. They have to conform to their children to some extent. They conform to their husband. They're very good at that. My female coaching clients progress 2 or 3 times faster than the guys, because men are stubborn. We don't want to change quickly, which is good. That gives us stability to society. But you tell a woman something and she's like, yeah, I'll go try it out. She'll backslide all the time too, but this is just the way it is. And we need to manage the risk. We're all talking about managing the risk. That's up to you. That's from something inside of you that you choose how to manage the risk and how to make sure. Steve's right. Like, if you pick the right woman, you don't have these problems. And if you manage her right, pick the right woman, manage her right, you'll be fine.
That's a complex way of saying it comes down to your choices. Yep. And that also is in line with what DDJ is saying too, though, in terms of risk management. It's choices, agency. That's what I'm hearing anyway. Ken, did you want to hop in?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to piggyback a little on Steve's stuff. He was talking about the relationship not being based on a love relationship. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because so many guys go into a relationship needing a woman to validate them, to fulfill them, to complete them. I'm going to her to try to domesticate me, to make me a better man. All the you complete me bullshit. And that we hear, and that's our society is so saying that. It's like, I have to have somebody in my life to make me better at who I am. And I think, to Steve's point, the whole thing of being a man, being strong, being internally referenced, having a solid sense of self, not needing anybody else out there to complete me or to validate me is a powerful way to start a relationship.
Well, why is it bad for a woman to complete you? Is this codependency? Is this
absolutely? Yeah, it's total codependency. That's what it is. And that's kind of that's the narrative of our culture, that a man needs a woman to domesticate him, or a man needs a woman to make him complete. It's complete idiocy. It's just not right. And I think, you know, everything that Steve was talking about was be a man, be strong, have your own internal frame of reference, know who the hell you are, know what your values are, have character. And to Noah's point, be masculine, I call it solid fluid. You said hard and soft. I'm going, the men are solid, women are fluid. A man is the riverbanks. He's the one that tells the river where to go by guiding. And men are solid. Be a solid man. Be strong. Have an internal frame of reference. Be masculine. Have that polarity. And that's what's going to carry the relationship. But if it's based on love or infatuation, it's going to fall apart. Because no matter what, Noah, you're right in the middle of having babies. As soon as babies hit the fan, everything hits the fan. Because it's like, you think you're going to get validation from your woman anymore? Hell no. The babies get it all. All her time and energy go to the babies. And if you don't have a good sense of self, and it's based on that codependency and needing her to be able to give you attention, man, it's all going to fall apart. And so we've got to know that relationships, marriage is something based on such a stronger foundation than just infatuation.
Yeah, Ken, I wanted to actually dig into, you're the only one of the panelists who's a licensed marriage and family therapist. You've done that for decades at this point, yeah?
Not quite decades, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been long enough.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of dig into, at least temporarily for a few minutes, what's your experience been doing that? Like, what's that like? The only other, family therapist I know like that is Dr. Robert Glover. What Sean does, Sean Smith, is a bit different, I think.
Yeah,
so I'm curious to hear about what that's like.
Yeah. So give me something a little more specific with the question.
I guess I'm curious, first of all, is a lot of it is couples based, or is it singular based, or is it a mix of both? Like 50/50?
Well, probably, yeah. So my practice, I do a lot, probably 2/3 of my work is with men, specifically just with men. And it's actually going through a lot of the crap that men deal with. Because, agreed, the court system, it's a rough place. And a lot of guys really get screwed in a lot of ways. And so it's tough. It's a tough place. And so helping guys navigate, losing relationships or being in the middle of a relationship that's fallen apart or something like that. But it always comes back with that individual work. It always comes back to working with a guy to rebuild his frame and rebuild his sense of self. Because in a relationship, you had used the word codependency, Anthony. And if I'm living in a codependent fashion, which most of us are, I have to step back and create what's called interdependence, not codependence. And interdependence requires that I be a person, that I have an identity, that I have a differentiated self, that I know who I am and what I want. And when I'm able to start to reclaim that territory, and I reclaim my own soul, and I reclaim my own self, then I can actually engage in a relationship from a healthy fashion. And that's a really, really significant shift. So 2/3 of my time is helping guys do that. Okay. And then the other third is working with marriages and working with couples. And working with couples, that's pretty much all I do is, help people to learn how to communicate who they are, what they want, and helping each other be able to then collaborate to be able to take care of each other and to be able to build well-being in the relationship. Because that's why we get married in the first place, is to have a higher sense of well-being. And that's a pretty significant thing. But I think one thing that people don't realize is, and Glover talks about this, and it's brilliant. He calls it marriage or relationship is a people growing machine. And marriage is going to grow you up. It's going to make you more mature. It's going to move you to a place where you are stronger and you're more internally referenced and you're more of having a stronger sense of identity. And most people...
that actually brings me to what I wanted to ask you next.
Sure.
I wanted to talk about the benefits of marriage and family, not even specific to fatherhood itself and that element, but what are the benefits on a personal level to a man who does this? Obviously, like Noah mentioned, there's sacrifice, there's risk to it. There's, added responsibility. Are these things good for a man? Why are they good? Why isn't it just, why would you want to do this as a young man today, rather than live some hedonistic, enjoy the decline, fall of the West? So what are the benefits on a personal level to a man? Like you were mentioning, I never heard that from Dr. Glover, but it's a people growing machine. It makes it more mature, for example. So let's open the whole panel too, but just benefits of being in a marriage. Like, why would you do this?
It's longer. married men live longer. They tend to be healthier, especially if you have kids. Before I was married, I didn't think anything of sacrificing myself to accomplish some goal. And that was great for getting things done. But that's not a good path to follow when you're 40, 50 years old. You're gonna kill yourself young if you do that. And then when I got married, I was like, no, I have to balance this out, because I can't drive crazy fast or go with friends that drive crazy fast. I can't put myself in dangerous situations anymore. I got someone that needs me, that relies on me. You have kids, it's a whole other level of that. And so you start making smart decisions. You start saying, I better make sure I got my sleep and my eating and my exercise on point, so that when I'm 40, I'm about to have twins. When I'm 60, I want to be able to go hard wrestling with those kids, and not get myself broken.
Right.
That means I got to take care of myself now. So your whole calculations in life, everything you're doing, changes when you have a wife and kids, because you now have to worry about future you. When you're single, future you doesn't matter. I mean, who wants to grow old alone? That's horrible. Grow old with grandkids? That's awesome.
Well, my thing is, and again, and if I feel if someone wants to grow old by themselves, that's fine. I don't mind that. But for me, I got tired. I mean, okay, the orgies, the threesomes, the women sleeping around, having them do stuff. I mean, when you live a lifestyle, when you have a lot of women, you get a lot of women at one point in time. You kind of get tired of it. You get bored with it. You get bored with all the women wanting to get with you and all. It just starts to become boring. But on top of that, again, I was lucky enough that my father always told me, this is how Williams eats a Big Mac. This is how Williams walks. This is how Williams talks. I mean, just kept churning that into my head to give me a certain kind of arrogance and confidence about myself. I mean, who has a picture like this on the back of the thing? That's how I feel about myself. But my thing is that I'm so arrogant and so cocky and so conceited. I wanted to duplicate me. And the only way I could duplicate myself was find somebody that was worthy of my last name and worthy of my sperm, because I'm not going to just give that away like Halloween candy to anybody. But it was a systematic thing of putting her through the rigorous things. She had to show me that she could slay the Minotaur and put it on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro and come down and cook and clean and do all her wifely duties just to get in her foot in the door to grab my attention and say, okay, you could be a wife to me. But it was also being able, and this is something guys don't do, it was also talking to her. We had talks about political views, religion, religion, money, or her credit had to be right. I need to look at her debt, the money that she created. We talked about discipline, Halloween, Christmas. We talked about how I had to make sure that if she was going to be honored, keyword honored, by having my kids, she had to be the right woman for the job. And that's what we did. We talked about it, and I made sure that she was right for it, because, and this is, but see, a lot of guys don't think that high of themselves to do that. But the reason why I wanted marriage was because, you know what, again, I'm not a religious person, but I'm more of a Christian than most Christians, and that's weird because anyway. But the thing is this, the thing is this, is that I wanted a family. And if you want a family, that's the only reason to get married, to, in my opinion. And I understand, you can have people to look after you and things like that. And we are going to get old and all the other stuff. But the thing that I love the most is being able to look at my kids and knowing that my last name and my legacy is going to move forward. And I'm going to keep pushing that through my kids. So in the year 9854, when I'm no longer on this planet, they will have this picture on the top of their mantle, and they would say the reason why I'm the man I am today, because my great Jebediah Steve D. Williams was a complete asshole and a stubborn motherfucker, but he taught me values of being a man. That's why I did it, because I wanted to duplicate. Because I knew who I was, and I knew what I can give to the world. I can give the world good women that know their place and will treat a man the way he should be treated. I knew I could create men that can go into this world, find good women if they choose to, and duplicate and keep the thing churning. So for me, it was more about my arrogance and my conceitedness.
I'd like to hit the super chat, unless someone's there's a super chat we missed from about 10, 15 minutes ago. I want to hop onto. This one is from Tim Allen. Tim Allen, thanks for the super chat. If you loved a woman and she leaves you because you're making mistakes, how can you find it in you to love another woman? It feels like even if I find someone new, I'm always going to wish I was with her. Open to the panel.
I'll go last. Y'all go ahead.
I mean, it sounds like a really deep. Yeah, it sounds like a trust issue. I mean, I can relate to this. I don't feel like fucking handling it, but
that's the key. If you read the statement there, gentlemen, if you love the woman and she leaves you because you're making mistakes, guess what, guys? We're guys.
We make mistakes.
We are always gonna make mistakes, man. But it's either own the mistake. But see, again, on the streets before the internet, there was a thing called ride or die. And I know a lot of you young heads don't understand that. That means a woman is going to ride with you and die with you, even through the mistakes. And even if you make a mistake, a woman should be there for you and not against you. And see, these are the little signs that we're trying to tell you guys. When a woman is always beating you down for the mistake you made and throwing it in your face over and over and over again, is that really love? Is that really respect? Mm-hmm. Then no, that isn't. So when you listen, I want you to love another woman, young man, but first I need you to learn how to respect another woman or have her respect you first. Once you can get in a respect relationship and throw love out and let love be something that is earned, then you won't worry or have the fear, because here's your problem. Last thing I want to say, and I go back to it. What's going to happen is you break up with that woman. The next woman you see, because you've never changed, you are going to give her ultimate power over yourself because of the fear of losing her, because you're like, if I make a mistake, I'm going to lose her. So I got to make sure I do everything right. You can't, as men. We all fuck up. That's the truth. But I am never going to allow, and I hate to say this, a woman that bleeds once a month to dictate to me how to be a man or to judge me on the moves that I make. So what I'm saying to you, man, is that get out of that love stuff, stop making excuses, and learn from one of these. And you got individuals on this panel, a community of men that you can talk to right now and help get yourself out of it, because you can't do it on your own, brother.
And just a quick comment on a basic manosphere red pill level. I mean, this sounds like he's obviously hung up on this woman, and this would be called like one-itis or something. Mm-hmm. So something obvious to do is go out and meet new women and let time go by. Meet new women, have sex with new women, see what happens.
Yeah, and
time will heal a lot.
Well, and I think that's true. I mean, probably the easiest way to get over a woman is to fuck another one. I mean, that's the reality. And the other thing is too is that, look, we have the practice of law, we have the practice of medicine. The problem that we have today is society doesn't allow us to practice marriage. And so when men and women make mistakes, everybody's like, okay, we're in ultimatumville, and now we have to we have to just destroy the relationship no matter what, right? And so we have this idea that we should focus on ourselves to the exclusion of everything else, and that's completely wrong. We have to be what Ken said, we have to be interdependent. We can't be codependent, because once we become codependent, it becomes a problem. And the reality is this, and this is something that I've come to terms with. Again, I've been divorced twice. The reality is this: if she's not ride or die, like Steve says, she didn't love you the way you needed to be loved. Mm-hmm. If you didn't, I mean, if you're not running around and abusing her or anything like that, and I'm talking like legitimate abuse, not the feminist redefinition of my feelings are hurt, so now I got to file a DV order because you said a mean word to me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like if you're not abusive and she can't work through those things, then she didn't love you. She didn't love you the way you needed to be loved. So move on. Find something else and do what I did. Learn to vet. Learn to make decisions. I can tell you right now, I've done a lot of divorces, and I've talked to a lot of guys around the country about divorce in the context of their divorce. And it's funny, every one of them says, and I said this too in my first marriage, every one of them says, I should have seen the signs. They were there. I should have seen the signs. They were there. And that's the thing, is that, you know, if you don't see the signs of what the damage is, then, or you see the signs and you look beyond those signs, you're like, oh, just get over it, or just whatever. No, fuck all that. If you see signs in the beginning of the relationship where you know there's going to be problems down the road, cut her off and on to the next one.
But we don't do that because the sex is so good, and it's like listen, I'm not saying
quit fucking her. I'm just saying go find another one that you can have a relationship with.
I'm saying that's why we don't listen to our intuitive. We don't watch the red flags. We don't see the yellow flags. Yeah. We don't go, oh my gosh, she's treating the wait staff horribly, or damn, we don't have the same political value or the same faith value, or there's just stuff that's not going on that there are the things that she's doing, you know, that she's not being honest with me, or whatever it is. We don't listen to it because, gosh, like Tim said in his side thing, she was the best that I could have done, and it's like, good grief, man. It's like, that's the one-itis thing, that this woman is the only thing I need in order to make me feel good about myself. And I'm not going to listen to the red flags. And that's what gets me in a problem.
That's
vetting is absolutely essential.
Well, and let's
idealization too, right, Ken? Like he's idealizing the soul.
Yeah,
it's not
really. I find a lot of one-itis when I drill down with men to figure out what it is. It's fantasy, it's romanticism, and it's the purpose of it is to put off moving forward. They don't really like her. They like the idea of her because then they can think about the past and not have to think that, man, I got some work to do on myself, and I got something to do on going out and filtering and finding a new woman. It's better to live in my head. And if we can get them over that point, the one-itis will go away.
Well, and I think that the other thing too that we need to make sure that men understand is this: when you orgasm, that doesn't mean that she loves you, right? That means you feel good, right? A lot of guys are like, "Oh my God, I orgasmed. This must mean love." And it's like, "No, man, no. You just orgasmed. It is what it is. You know, it's a great feeling. We all understand it, but you know, orgasm does not and never will equal love. And if you think it does, you're setting yourself up for failure out of the gate, and you're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of."
Yeah. It's not just the orgasm though. It's the fact that she allowed you in, and that's the validation. Oh, a beautiful naked woman. Let me have sex with her. That means I'm somebody. I have value. And when you start giving the woman value, or you get your value from a woman, it's like Steve says, you're giving her all the power in the world.
Yeah. One of the greatest compliments that a mutual friend of ours, Anthony, said to me was, he said, I know you don't need the approval of women, but I wanted to let you know that so-and-so thought that you enjoyed your talk at the 21 convention. And saying to me, like, saying, you don't need women's approval for self-validation. That is what makes a man immune to these type of problems. You get divorced, you don't get divorced. You get a woman, you lose her, whatever. Doesn't matter, because that's not your life.
No, tell me, say that again. Say it again about immunity. I want that. I think it's so huge what you're saying.
If your ego is based, I wrote a post recently about this, basing your ego on your virtues, your abilities, things that are yours that can't be taken away from you. And not on your relationship with your woman, your relationship with your friends, your job, your career, whatever. Because it makes you immune to evil people, manipulative people. They have no wedge they can get into you. There's no chink in your armor. And what happens is bad women come along and say, they'll poke you and test you, and they'll be like, oh, I can't manipulate this man. I'm off to the next one. And they will self-filter out of your life because they won't be able to handle you, and they'll leave.
I think that's so well said. Well said.
I want to move the topic or the conversation forward a little bit. I have two things I want to get to still. One is an idea that I heard this separately in a book recently I was reading, but I think Ken or Noah mentioned it earlier in the show. The idea that I heard that was related to whatever I heard in this show today as well. The idea is that the boy is the father of the man, and obviously a man becomes a father of a boy when he becomes a father someday. But it's the idea that psychologically that your young self, in a way, fathered the man that you eventually became. the choices that you made in childhood, to the extent you had the ability to exert control over that and actually make a choice in your life as a boy, as a teenager, and then as a young man. So I could just kind of open up to the panel and see what you guys thought about that. It was an idea I had not seen before. I had heard that recently. The boy is the father of the man.
Well, I think that when it comes to a lot of this, and we know we did a stream about this, I think it was the first stream we did together. I think multi-generational mentorship for men is probably crucially important, because again, it's about that community, right? It's a community you surround yourself with. So if your child has a strong father, and that strong father is surrounded by other strong men, whether it be uncles and grandparents and things like, grandfathers, things like that, that child's going to get a better upbringing, and that child's going to grow up to be a lot stronger than a father who is either weak, or a father who hasn't had that mentorship himself, or a father who is kind of like the blind leading the blind. And I think that's why that multi-generational mentorship is so crucial for young men today. And that's why you see a lot of this, promiscuity culture. You see this focus on, the culture of me over the culture of anything else. I mean, those things are problems. And
well, Didi, I think what you're saying, what I hear what you're saying too, is that multi-generational mentorship is not only valuable and important, but then when it's gone, the consequences are catastrophic and tend to snowball over multiple generations.
They do.
And so it's it's a very strong positive, and it's a very strong negative too, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I always say that children of broken homes are often job creators for the welfare state. You have to hire more police officers, more judges, more therapists, more jailers. It becomes a problem that snowballs. So yeah, you have to have that multi-generational mentorship. And the thing is that, as a parent, I can say this because I'm a parent and a grandparent. One of the things that I see is that, at least in my own life, and I hear this from a lot of fathers, is my children teach me. They teach me about myself.
Absolutely.
And what's nice is when you teach your children how to do things, you confirm the knowledge for yourself. So, those things are extremely important in parenthood, because as you see your child get those milestones, that's fulfilling as a father. I know it was for me. So I know that, every father I've talked to, they say that. And I know there's guys on this panel earlier on that talked about parenthood and the benefits that it has for a man. So yeah, your child in some ways will teach you, but it won't be in the ways that you think.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. For sure. Anthony,
that's a benefit, by the way, I've not heard of, that your children will help you like that and teach you.
Dude, man.
Vaguely, but
trust me, what DDJ is saying is so spot on. You learn so much from your kids. It is a context of growth that is way beyond what you could ever imagine. You learn so much, especially if you're parenting them well, teaching them to have a voice, teaching them to hold you accountable as a dad as well as them. It's amazing. It's such a great relationship.
And that, I think, so what you just said kind of, I think, highlights like there's a total lack of that, or there, at least for a long time, there's been a huge lack of that thrust that children will benefit you in the manosphere itself. Like, this is absolutely not outlier idea that, other than like maybe what Hunter Drew and the Patriarch stuff do. Other than that, like, this is not allowed to discuss. It's a discussion point. Noah?
Yeah, my youngest brother died about 6 months before my wife got pregnant with my first son.
Oh,
and he'd had like 20-something years of bad health. He had a terrible brain infection when he was 2. And it had been constant suffering for decades. And it was really terrible. And I said to my wife, I said, and then I'd had a whole bunch of other relatives die because they all just died of old age. And I said to my wife, I said, there's so much death in the family, because when I was a kid, I had a huge family and it just kept shrinking. And my brother has a couple of kids, but otherwise nobody was having kids, and one brother died. So I said to my wife, the antidote to death and suffering is life and happiness. We need to make a kid. And then we got, started working on it right away. And that's exactly what it is. The antidote to all the bad things in the world is looking into your kid's face and enjoying them growing up, the pleasure that they have in life. Did your childhood suck? Make sure your kids doesn't, and enjoy their childhood with them.
That is so awesome. That is really awesome, that way you're saying that.
That's just too much positivity for me. You must be a blue pill, purple pill loser.
Oh, and one other thing I wanted to say, that the antidote to hypergamy is to get your wife pregnant multiple times. It's pretty hard to get hypergamous when you're splitting up babies every couple of years.
Oh.
What a plan! What a plan!
I told you, Noah's like this hybrid of like Tanner Guzy and Hunter Drew. It's great, and then this unique personality on top of that.
Yeah,
I wanted to move the conversation forward a little bit into.
Hey, Anthony, hang on a second. Can I answer your other question?
Absolutely.
The whole thing of the boy is the father of the man. Where my brain went was the whole concept of initiation, and the whole thing of bringing a boy to become a man. And I think most of us have not gone through a process of initiation. It's not something that is normal in the West. And so being able to actually create that, or actually think through that and know what that is, because the first step of the initiation is pulling the boy, and oftentimes they'll do it in the middle of the night, and they'll pull the boy away from the women, and that's the point of fear. That fear is the driver. That's like the greatest fear that a boy would have, and pulling him away into this uncertain territory of who knows what it is. And that's where a boy begins to be a man, is separation from the women and becoming with the men. And this is DDJ's thing he was talking about, the whole thing of multi-generational mentoring. It's like, yeah, the men that are older than me are going to guide me into a place where I actually know what it means to be a man, but it can't be done connected to women. And that's we all of us, and so much of what's on the manosphere is talking about women this, women that, what's wrong with women, AWOLT, hypergamy, all this stuff. And it's like, why are we so stinking we're so stuck on what's going on with women? Let's get us to a place where we're strong as hell.
Well, right, but that's because one of the main things about that is because anybody can identify the problem. Very few people are willing to look at the solutions. And let's be real, there's a huge culture in the manosphere right now of an unwillingness to listen to people older than themselves. It's like, look, if you don't have a tribal tattoo, if your head isn't shaved, if you don't have a perfectly feminine coiffed beard, and you don't smoke a cigar, I'm not paying attention to you, right? So that's the whole attitude, when the reality is that multi-generational mentorship is actually crucial to foster that healthy masculinity and that healthy aggressiveness and that healthy alpha male that every man can be. And that's the reality, is because when you're comfortable with your personality, and you have internal validation, you don't need to run around and beat your chest and do all the external validation bullshit. And that's the advantage and the power of multi-generational mentorship. But I think the biggest problem, again, with the manosphere is that everybody wants to point out the problem. Nobody wants to look at the solutions, and nobody wants to look at the solutions when those solutions involve self-reflection and a little bit of the necessary navel gazing we need to improve ourselves. And let me tell you something, when I realized that my first marriage was my fault, that's a humbling experience, when you're like, wow, I fucked up in a major way. So, most guys can't do that. And you see a lot of YouTube personalities out there, they can't do it as well. So like you guys said earlier, we are all fallible. We all make mistakes. But the point is not only for us to learn from those mistakes, but to let other people know that, look, we're human. We make mistakes. You will too. It's about progress, not perfection.
I wanted to hop off something, or spin off something both Ken and DDJ said. Something I've been thinking about since finding the work of Jack Donovan, and then more recently, the past few months, with all the events going on, shit like that for the convention, the Red Man Group and all that. The manosphere itself, it's a title, it's a concept, it's kind of an awkward name. I don't deny that. I don't think anybody does. But it's the best one we have so far, and I've yet to see a better one. But I think in the name that there's truth and power to it that's been kind of not overlooked. And specifically that the manosphere should focus on men and masculinity by virtue of the name itself. And by over-focusing, and that doesn't mean women and feminine nature and all these things and hypergamy are not relevant topics. Obviously, for men, they're going to be relevant, but they should not be high up in the food chain. They should not be number one. They should be a part of a pie or further down the list. And so I think that the manosphere has lost its way in recent months and years, and it's gotten overfocused. Or maybe it never even found its the right path in the first place. And it's up to us to set that path, to focus on men and masculinity and all the associated topics with that. Whether that's fatherhood and patriarchy, or marriage and relationships and family and children and parenting, even up to including politics and stuff like that. I know DDJ's harped on that feminists, that ignoring politics is dangerous because feminists have weaponized it super effectively for a long, long time. And that affects men. That affects us in numerous ways, whether it's Me Too stuff or getting raped in divorce court systematically across the country and family court and stuff like that. So I wanted to say that you had a good point, Ken, by talking about the focus on women and stuff like that. It needs to not be that. It needs to be, the focus needs to be, look at the name. I mean, the name has power, and the name is pretty accurate. The manosphere, a collection of men, a loosely organized body of men on the internet, numbering in the millions, focusing on issues surrounding men. So focusing on women too much it's stupid and counterproductive.
Well, and here's the thing too. When you get around a group of masculine men, like truly masculine men who are healthy in their own identities, what ends up happening is that when you sit for those behind the scenes conversations, women hardly ever come up. You know, I mean, we're too busy focused on other things. And again, you know, I'm not a perfect guy or anything like that, but you know, I'm not talking about the horrors of feminism all the time. I'm talking about you know, focusing on things that make men better, healthier. That's all.
Hey, let's hop to the phone line. Steve, we got a caller from area code 937. Steve, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, so go ahead. I have a problem organizing bills and paperwork.
Okay.
Let me add him to the stream. Try this one, Steve. See if that helps.
I think I heard him. He said he had a problem organizing bills and paperwork.
Yeah, I think that was a text chat, actually. He must have called in. Let me see if I can find that and hop it on the screen. Where was that? Yeah, thanks for calling in, by the way, caller. I'll see if I can find your text chat real quick and get to that.
Yeah, you got to sort out any difficulty you have with money before you get with a woman.
I hear it.
That's going to get amplified 100 times.
So I think it's Sean Anderson who called in. Having problems organizing bills and paperwork. Can you do it if he sits down, talks, and kind of holds my hand? How or what should I look for in a woman that can either do that for me or not act codependently? I don't know if I'm following this question. It seems kind of all over the place.
Well, I think that in general, I think that one of the things you need to do is you need to be able to manage your own finances, because if you can't manage your own finances before you get with a woman and you expect her to, you're just asking her to take your money and bounce. So I mean, how you know, let's be real, right? I mean, the reason why there are accountants and the reason why you have audits is to make sure your business is doing well, right? So what you do is, I mean, this is profitable, or if your business is going to lose when you don't audit the paperwork, you don't see what your profit and loss statement looks like, right? So the reality is, at the end of the day, you got to audit everything that's happening, because you need to know if somebody's stealing money. You need to know if you're wasting money somewhere. You need to know where your financial life can be more efficient. And on top of that, you need to know if you're making the right investments. And the way you do that is to audit it. And if you don't have the ability to do it, or you're unwilling to learn, you're asking for somebody to take advantage of you. And you see this with financial embezzlement all the time. So yeah, control your finances, learn how to do it. If you hate it, make it a strength, because that's a necessary requirement of having a healthy long-term lifestyle. If you can't run your finances, well, you know, you're done before you get started. You got to learn that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Even if you get a woman you can trust, you really want to dump that on her and make her manage all your money? You know, like, she's supposed to be able to rely on you, and here you are dumping all your money problems on her. That's not going to work. That's going to stress her out. What happens when you get her pregnant? She's going to want to focus on breastfeeding a kid, but no, she's got to go and sort out your money problems. You know, men sort out their problems. They can ask other men or professionals for help with those problems, but dumping it on their woman, it sets a bad precedent, and it tells her that you're not all the way grown up yet. You're still a boy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what he should do is, again, for me, I was lucky. I was told to go take accounting classes when I was young and hone economics and things like that, learn how to cook and sew. I was taught to learn how to do everything myself, so I'd never have to rely on somebody else. And the important thing here is that it's not the fact that you can't do it. It's the fact that you're too stressed out by it. You can do it. It's just sitting back and writing down what are your bills versus what you make, And that's it. It's not as complicated as you seem. But when you push that on a woman, you're automatically going to lose her respect right there, because she's thinking, how can a man, remember, I always talk about investments. If she's going to invest herself in you, what kind of return is she getting out of an investment on someone who can't handle his own money? And if he can't handle his own money, he probably can't handle himself. And if he can't handle himself, then why would I even want to be with him or have a baby by him? And if I have a baby by him because he can't handle it, I'm going to take over and let it. I mean, it's a domino effect. The first thing you've got to do is basic adding and subtraction. It is not complicated. Getting all your bills together, because like I always say, as a king, you must have your hand in every single jar and you are head of every single jar. You must know all bills. Listen, let me explain something to you. My woman knows accounting, okay? Taxes and all that other stuff. She's real good with that stuff. And I'm not saying I'm not, but I know she's better than me. But when we go out on our date nights on Friday night, if I want to look at the books, if I want to know what's going on, I'll see the books and I have a grand idea what's going on. Now, remember, I'm doling that out to her. I'm not giving it out to her. I'm allowing her to utilize things that are good in her. These are some of the reasons why I picked her in the first place. I can do it myself easily with my eyes closed, but she knows taxes better than I do. I don't know. I can be honest with you. I don't know much about taxes, but what I'm saying to you, caller, is this. You've got to be able to handle everything in your house before you bring somebody in your house.
Steve, it sounds to me like what you're saying, and it's really good. I like it, is that you're retaining authority and then delegating it on tap as you decide. That sounds good. I mean, and would scream at that, but I think it's good.
Yeah, and let me say one other thing too. Coming from a legal perspective, one of the ways you can find out if your woman is cheating on you when you're concerned is you figure out what she's spending money on. When you know how to audit your thing, oh, she took your money to go bang another dude, and you audit the books, you can see that. I'm not saying that you should be all paranoid or nothing like that. I'm not trying to foster a cult like Steve says, so nobody get their panties in a bunch. All I'm saying is that, when you audit your finances, you know when they're being misused, and when they're being misused, well, now you know how to, because you know what you're taking correct.
I'm just saying, and I'll piggyback off what you're saying. This is what I tell guys before. Again, a lot of people think I'm crazy when I tell them when I move in with a woman to get a joint bank account, and that's because all the bills are going to go into that bank account. She is not getting any of my money. Don't ask for any money. Don't ask for gas money. Your money's your money. My money's my money, and we are paying for bills and entertainment in a separate account. That's what I'm talking about. We get that, but then when it's time to go to the engagement phase. That's when I need to look at the books, DDJ. I need to know how much money you're bringing in, what you're spending, what your credit score is, and how much debt you have accumulated. Because I'm not taking on your debt. So you're going to have to be, I need a responsible woman because I'm a responsible man. So you got to clean up your shit before you even get my name or my ring. That's what I was saying, brother.
Moving the conversation forward a little bit, I wanted to move into implications or consequences of marriage or benefits that extend beyond yourself. So how do these things affect culture and the social structure that we live in? Like we've talked about,
they strengthen communities.
Okay. Yeah. Taking the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. They strengthen. I mean, listen, I lived in the Seattle area for a long time, and I've been, in the last probably 2 years, I've been around the country a couple dozen times. And when you go into a community, you drive into a community as a stranger, and you can drive through that community and you can go, this is a Christian community. This community promotes families. This community promotes, healthy masculinity and healthy femininity. And it helps, limited government. You see those communities, those are healthy communities. They're civil. You get out of your car, you walk into a restaurant, somebody holds the door open. They say, please and thank you. There is civility in those communities. When you go into an area that does not value family, I mean, it's like you walking down the street and it's the people of Walmart. So, you see all kinds of craziness. and the people are not as civil. They are more grifters. They have what's referred to as that fake California smile, and nobody is authentic. And so you see that, and you can tell right away, again, by interacting with the people, by taking a quick look around, by driving through the community, you could see how much family values impact those communities. Because I'll tell you, the values that adults have, they learn from their family. And if they don't have an intact family, then those values get warped and skewed oftentimes. So again, it's about safe communities. It's about strong communities. It's about civil communities. And it's about a community that in a true sense is progressive, in that community is evolving in positive ways. I don't mean progressive like the left is cancer we talk about. I'm talking about the actual definition of progressive. So I think that when it comes to those types of things, yeah, we absolutely see it. In fact, they even say that if you're in a poor community, or you're in a non-family oriented community, but you are living a Christian lifestyle where husband and wife are raising their biological children together, with Christian values, with an American cultural mindset, that family will be inoculated from the social cancer and plagues that are around them.
Yeah, just going to bring up, like a minute ago, you mentioned something related to what you just ended with, and that's that when you don't have this family structure and these things around you, extended family and immediate that's healthy and positive, you're weak to social cancers that want to influence you and control you. You don't have any. It's hard to have you don't have a value system. You weren't taught that as a child. And if you don't do that on your own, then you don't have one at all. And therefore, but you're still going to have one dumped on you from the culture around you. And that would be the blue pill kind of lies and all this bullshit, all this propaganda that you're fed growing up.
Well, Anthony, like you said, everything that shines isn't gold. I mean, yesterday was Friday the 13th, and I'll use that analogy for most communities. They're so busy telling everybody keep going to Camp Crystal Lake, and they know there's a murderous maniac there, and they keep on doing it. And DDJ is absolutely right, but it's also why you've got to be able to challenge everybody by knowing what you are and what your values are. You can't just be, and again, like DDJ is right about everything he's saying, but just because a couple is presenting themselves as, we have 2.5 kids, a dog and a white picket fence and a pie out the window, and we got our arm around each other, and we're the perfect couple, we're the Joneses. Hi. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes of that household. So again, before you learn about the community of everybody else, learn about the community of you first. When you do that, you can never go wrong.
Here's a question I have for the panel that will expand this even further. 5,000 years ago, as far as I know, marriage didn't exist even remotely anything like it exists now. There's nothing like it a couple thousand years ago. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding of history in a basic sense. Now we have had marriage in America for a long time. And in the West, what is the future of the West and of America without family? These things that we call loosely family values and marriage. You could call it a Christian lifestyle, but even separate from any kind of religious aspect. What's the future of this country and the nations around it, like Canada and the UK and stuff, without these things that are obviously dying off? And that's not just talked about. That's not just talked about in the manosphere. It's talked about in mainstream news, even like the fall of the family values, and all these things. Where's this country going to go in the West if we don't have these things? What are the consequences?
What I call it is, and I've done a couple of recent videos about this. What it is it's the death of the patriarchy is what we're seeing. It's not just family values. It's family values led by strong, high agency, capable men. And you will always have a patriarchy. You can undermine your patriarchy, you can lose it, and an external, stronger patriarchy will sweep in and take you over. This is basically the cycle of history. A strong patriarchal society, say early Rome, they grow and they expand, then they become weak, the family becomes weak, and they get destroyed by a group that has strong patriarchal values. More masculine group takes them over, and then it happens again, and it's a cycle. Either we're going to reignite men's agency and get them back doing the job of leading society, or someone else is going to come in and lead us. So basically our choice is slavery and annihilation, or a return to family values. This isn't a aesthetic preference. This is a matter of survival. And it may not seem like that now because we're coasting on so much strength from a couple hundred years of massive expansion of the West. But we're just about hitting the apogee of where that energy is going to take us, and it's downhill from here if we don't change things.
And by annihilation in these things, you don't necessarily mean like this Mad Max scenario we're riding around we're in the Thunderdome.
Yeah,
what you mean is probably more like a Soviet-style collapse that we saw happen in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Which a lot of Americans seem very ignorant of and don't care about.
Not every patriarchy. The Western patriarchy took care of women and children better than any organizational system before that. You know, we really did it to protect women and children. And there are other patriarchies with much less interest in protecting women and children that are expanding into the West at the moment. Millions of them coming in from other parts of the world. And we're either going to find that we reinstate ourselves as in a leadership position over society, or they will.
And that would be like cultures that literally chop women's heads off for adultery in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's the problem with that?
What happened? There was pre-Iran.
I'm referring to Saudi Arabia, actually, is what I'm referring to that. But
yeah. I'm trying to figure out the problem here. I'm a little lost.
Maybe they have some good ideas, and exactly that's what's going to happen. I tell people, if you can promote your own loving patriarchy of the West, or you're going to get it replaced by something harsh and intolerant. Either it's going to come from us, because we're going to go, hey, maybe these guys have some good ideas, and we're going to end up with something homegrown, or we're going to get taken over. And this is not a new thing. This is just a cycle of history. It's what happens in the past.
Well, and let me dovetail on that a little bit. This is why men have to vote. This is why men have to be politically active. This is why men cannot socially isolate. This is why men have to be involved in their communities, because this isn't about being a disposable utility at this point. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about when you invest in your communities invest in you. And so, you know, we have to repeal some of these laws that discriminate against men. We have to make sure that we don't allow anti-American bigots in public office. You know, when you know, one of the requirements in Congress, and one of the requirements to work, you know, to be elected in government, is you have to take an oath to protect the Constitution. So if you're going to go and say, I'm going to campaign on taking gun rights away, you violated your oath before you ever started. Go play hide and go fuck yourself. We don't need you. You know, the reality is that, you know, if you don't stand for the Constitution, if you don't stand for the Western Christian way of life, if you don't stand for American culture, you probably don't belong, not even in the manosphere, but you don't belong in the United States, because those are cultural values that we as American citizens have. And this is absolutely correct. There are no-go zones in the United States. There are Sharia patrols in the United States, and they are trying to make their cars look like cop cars. Okay. There is a lot of problems. There are a lot of social cancers in the United States. And there are people here whose goal is destruction. That's their goal. They want to create a recession. They want to create a collapse so they can usher in this new era of communism. That's the reality. And they've openly said this. And so a lot of guys get this idea that, you know, like 5-10 years ago, that I remember a lot of guys like, oh, these are conspiracy theories. They're not going to come take your guns. Congratulations. You now have red flag laws that violate due process rights guaranteed under the Constitution, and all the things that everybody had been, you know, sounding off about for the last 15-20 years, and they were, you know, called conspiracy theorists. Turns out these were facts.
If
so
I can interject this too, DDJ, one of our speakers recently, Jack Donovan, he's spoken a couple times, including Poland recently. He put out a blog post recently, and he doesn't usually talk about politics at all anymore. He used to a long time ago, and then he just started staying away from it, you know, focusing on other topics of masculinity. But he did revisit politics, and the thrust of his post was about the Bill of Rights, and how if the Bill of Rights is not something you can get behind, we have a problem. And so, separate from anything to do with political parties and ideology and all these things and preferences, in terms of voting and politics and all this, like the Bill of Rights is extremely important, and it's just part of the Constitution, obviously a large part of it, or you know, just the beginning of it. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. I haven't seen anyone.
Well, it's based on federal law.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was just kind of fascinating, especially what you're saying. Red flag.
What normally happens to traitors who say they'll uphold the Constitution and then work to undermine it in the background? I think I seem to remember there was a pretty serious consequences for that. And we know this, if we don't enforce boundaries in our relationships with other people, with women, whatever, even with friends, we know what happens. Total chaos, and we get destroyed.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't have a problem with the whole Saudi idea of chopping heads off for adultery.
Well, what happens when we don't enforce boundaries with our own governments?
Right.
Well, I think that, I'm looking at it, and I agree with y'all saying, but I'm seeing that it's already happening now. And I really feel like it's women that have orchestrated a great chess move by placing who they created in certain areas and certain positions to get certain things that they want done. But I'll whittle it down a little bit. But case in point, look at this show right here that we're on right now. It's not the women that's trying to stop the man information of the community trying to get out. It is males, grass-eating lions, that are coming on here trying to represent mom and trying to take the information that this community is trying to give, and what they're doing is they're trying to protect mommy. And that's why because someone came and asked about all the dislikes. Of course we're going to be disliked because mommy doesn't want that information to know that if she's around a man, she's got to submit. So what does she do? She creates what I call the Smiths, the Antichrist, and the agents. The guys that will come in here and smile in your face, but they don't want this information out. So and I think, like I say, I see where y'all are coming from, but I think it's already here. They've already, I mean, if y'all see, like I say, I watch football. Y'all watched Cam Newton the other day with a scarf over his head like he was Harriet from 1950. You can see it's already happening. They have already integrated themselves into our boys to make them think that it's okay to be more feminine than masculine. But you also see it with all these people that have been in the chat room trying to sway us men. See, the thing they don't understand is you can't sway a man. It just shows how much of a bitch you are. But what they don't understand is they're coming in because they're doing it wrong. See, everybody, think about magic. Magic is all about the trick of the hand, right? You're watching this, but you ain't watching this. So what's happening is a lot of people are focusing on women, but they're not seeing that it's other males, not men, other males coming in and trying to prevent men like us to get the information out. So I think it's already happening. They are in here. They don't want the information out, and they're working for women. That's the whole. See, people don't understand this. People think, Mr. Mel book writer and Mr. car driver and all them other cake ass motherfuckers over there. They think they got their best interest, but they don't understand that they're working for the women. They're not working for you to be a man. They're trying to declaw you and defang you by the sleight of hand. But you don't see the magic that they're doing. And I didn't mean to go in the soapbox, but I'm just saying, I think y'all are right what you're saying, but I think it's happening right here. And we notice it because we're men. We can see. But a lot of these young men are so trustworthy, and they think because a man is telling them something that what he's saying is right. That's all I want to say on that fact.
Yeah, Steve's absolutely right. We don't have anything to fear from women. We're bigger and what we have to be concerned about is men who get wrapped up in around women's thumbs or through politics get under the control of women, and those men being weaponized against other men. And
sounds like vicious males to me.
Yeah, well, one of my friends, he said, men are physical super predators, women are social super predators. Women are super predators in social things. They know how to get what they want through social means, the control of men through social means. If we make ourselves immune to that control, then we suddenly have a tremendous amount of power. And the more men, this is why what you're doing, Anthony, is so important here. And what all of us are doing, teaching men how to become immune to women's manipulation. This is why they're attacking us. They don't want us to teach other men agency and how to be immune to manipulation, because then they can't control them. And women and the men being controlled by women are deathly afraid that men are going to figure out that, hey, actually, we don't have to listen to what you say in your orders. We can kind of do what we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing I would like to add, let me add something real quick here. The other thing I want to say too is that you're going to see a lot of these guys that come into these channels and they do the hate, like Steve says. You're going to watch, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to diminish, but more importantly, they got their crayons out. They're taking notes. You watch 3 to 5 weeks from now, they'll be on their channels saying the same shit that we said on this channel today. So, and they'll act like they invented it. They're like, oh yeah, well, you know, this is what you got to do. Da, 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 da. And it's like, no, listen, if we wanted the Good Cuck Project, we would go to the Good Cuck Project. We don't want the Good Cuck Project. That's why we're on the Red Man Group.
Kind of wanted to ask, you know, you've worked in a very personal setting as a family and marriage therapist for quite a while now. So you're seeing the personal consequences of these things, the benefits, the risks, the outcomes for good and for better and for worse. What are your thoughts on the long range and larger scale implications of what you do? You and other men like you, like Dr. Glover and the thousands of other, you know, family and marriage therapists. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it just feels like that there's a hell of a lot of work to do. I mean, this is what we're talking about here is a cultural shift, you know, and I love how Noah's talking about it, how it's like the immunity side of it, and because that's really the essence of it, is how does a man become and I call it, like I said, the internal frame of reference, where he's listening to himself, he's listening to his intuitive, he's finding his wisdom, he's knowing his identity and moving from that and beginning to create the life that he wants. And I think that's the building block of this, and so I think the work that everybody here is doing, the work that we do to help men become empowered. And I think that's what Noah was talking about. The whole idea of if you even say the concept of empowering men, it's like that scares the shit out of everybody out there, because of the whole zero sum idea of power. You know, if the man has power, the woman has no power. And I think that's bullshit. I think every man on the planet, when he becomes more powerful, he wants everybody around him to become more powerful. It's kind of, that's how men are. You know, some men are power over, where we try to control things, but most guys, we just want our families to be powerful. We want our kids to thrive. We want our wives to thrive. We want our communities to thrive. And so as a man becomes more powerful, he's giving that power. It's earlier we were talking about, you know, the whole idea of sacrifice for our family. That's what men do. And that's what we do with our power. We give. But then that makes us more powerful.
That sounds to me like that's what healthy masculine men want. And I think that's what the foundation of this country was built on and has been built on for a long, long time. And then feminism and all these things that we've seen for decades now has been trying to, you know, dismantle that and undo it. But yeah, I believe firmly in what you're saying, that that's what healthy masculine men want. That's most men. Well, I think that's to some degree, that's most men. There's a healthy element to that in most men. But then you have some very toxic elements to try to undermine that. And the Vichy males would be an example of that. Guys who are under the thumb of their women, and then they're being weaponized against other men. I think even, for example, that with no commentary on women voting or not, that I think the passage of women voting in America came down to like 1 or 2 votes. And I think the final vote was the guy who got a letter from his mother who had basically manipulated him into voting against the way he was otherwise going to vote. So I'm not opposed to the, you know, I'm not for or against the outcome of that. I'm not even going to comment on it. But I remember reading about that once and I was like, wow. It could really come down to that narrow of a bridge and what kind of power that man's going to exert over his own thinking and of his own autonomy. And he was, you know, he was a U.S. whatever he was, a senator or congressman or something. That's how it played out.
Which is instructive of the fact that women had political power before they got the vote.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the man's vote was supposed to represent the entire family.
Well, let's talk about that, because I actually know a little bit of history about this. So here's the thing: while women didn't have the right to vote, there were many women who did vote, and the reason why women voted is because that whole women's vote argument ended up being bullshit. You see, if you weren't a landowner, you didn't vote, because if you were a landowner, you had skin in the game in the community that you lived in. So if you were a landowner, or you were not a landowner and you were a man, sometimes you didn't get a right to vote depending on who you were. So, you know, this idea that you know, women didn't get the right to vote doesn't mean women didn't vote. And I've always said women have always wielded soft power, men always wield hard power. That's the balance that's there. So this idea that, you know, we're going to reframe every little piece of history to you know, drop a knee for women, that's all bullshit. It's all feminism. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's a revisionist history. It's a painting over that men have just been this evil force and oppressing women, and then all of a sudden they got the right to vote, and there's this magical fucking unicorns. The opposite, in many ways, the opposite's happened. The debt in this country, in America, it's just correlation. It's not causation, but the debt has skyrocketed, national debt in America, since women got the right to vote. And you saw all these social programs implemented, like Social Security and stuff. Social Security itself is like over $100 trillion in debt in terms of unfunded liability. It's insane. It's way higher than the 21 or 20 trillion or whatever what the government's facing. By the way, we have a super chat. This one's directed to DDJ.
Hey, Anthony, can I?
Oh yeah.
Before you jump, I really want to finish that whole statement of, because you're saying what do we do, and everybody in our own little corner of the world, all of us men being able to make a difference. It's like that's the key to this thing, of being able. I would love to increase my influence, but I have this little corner here I have in Colorado that's mine, and I'm trying to make the change. And Noah, wherever you are, you're making a change, and Steve's making his change. And it's like, but it's got to be like we were talking about earlier, the whole idea of men working with men, and I think that's the prime thing. And to look at the outcome of that is, as men become stronger, as men become empowered, as men have voices, as men become disconnected from needing to have a woman make him feel better about himself, then that's how this whole thing is going to shift. And it's the only way it's going to shift, is men becoming stronger and more internally referenced.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at it as men and women are the foundation. We're two halves of the same species. And it's like, this is the foundation, looking at ourselves and then, exerting that out into the world. This is how we can connect and move the world forward.
Yep.
Well, we have to unite. Yeah. And we have to unite kind of like all the tribes and the communities of men. We all have to work together. That's the reason I joined the Red Man group, even though I disagree with people sometimes. The point is that, the overall arching goals we all agree on. And that's the most important piece to take away, because you know what? Men can disagree on issues and still forge strong relationships and strong communities.
Yeah, and that's been the focus of my life's work. That wasn't how it began. It was more self-focused. I was like, I suck with girls. I'm 17. I want to do a meetup group and get these speakers together, and speakers and the attendees, and we can all learn from each other. But that has spawned into it's every year that's gone by over the past 13 years of the 21 convention, more recently the Red Man group. It's been further and further connection, more connecting. First, it was attendees and a few speakers. Then it was more speakers. Then it was connection of events that built a legacy of events that connected countries and different groups online, men's rights, pickup artists, Red Pill, MGTOW now. So yeah, it's always this further connection thing. I think it's really important. I call the Manosphere the first ever emerging movement of men and fathers that are organizing for the specific interest, not of some specific political cause or some other civil cause, other than the interests of men, boys, and fathers. And that, I think, is really special, and that's why we need to keep coming together. And that the unity is important. And sometimes it's not always unicorns and rainbows keeping the unity together. Sometimes it gets nasty and there's some bloody noses. But we have the super chat I think we should get to. This one's focused on DDJ from Ultra Magnus. Thanks for the $5 super chat, Ultra. DDJ, is it possible to overturn alimony and child support legally? If she wants to leave, let her, but it's the resources and children I care about.
Well, I think that when you're talking about alimony, there's actually already legislation in the works to adjust alimony. And specifically, the issue is that now that women are being court ordered to pay alimony, feminists are trying to change that. They're like, oh my gosh, and this has been something like I talked about in my book, The Feminist Lie, #ShillAlert, but it's also something that I've talked about, online on many different streams where, women are, the majority of the college graduates now, they are the, they have a lot of the white collar jobs. Men are being forced out of many of these jobs through false allegations and harassment. So when you're talking about this, women are now being forced to pay a lot of alimony. And so now they're starting to change the law because they don't want to be responsible for it. So I think that you're going to see the alimony change. As far as child support is concerned, that kind of dovetails. It's a little bit more of a complex answer, but I'll try to distill it down as best I can. So the issue with child support is child support was meant obviously to go to the children, but what governments have done is they've turned it into a lifestyle stipend for women. And I say women because women get custody 86 or 87% of the time in child custody battles. So what happens is that like Title 4D of Social Security was created specifically for child support. And so what happens is that every state child support enforcement agency out there, the federal government, they rob Social Security of those monies, and they give them for every dollar a state child support agency spends, whether it's Texas or somebody else, the federal government reimburses them 66 cents. So what ends up happening is these child support agencies, they have to grow. That's why you hear about like these SWAT teams going after deadbeat dads. They know that they can get that Title 4D money as a free grant for their police department. So that's what they do. When some courts, some counties will have a judge specifically, their whole calendar is child support cases. That's all they hear, right? That's because they want to have that money, and they get reimbursed. I mean, you're talking $5-6 billion a year that gets robbed from Social Security because of child support. So when you're saying, is there a way to change child support? Technically, no, because again, I mean, you're going to have to change the country. This is why men need to be political. This is why men have to start voting. This is why men have to be they have to have that political knowledge, because until you have that political knowledge, nothing really changes. Now, I will say this. I do believe that child support, as far as the way that it is determined, I think is too onerous for the non-custodial parent, because what it does is it destroys their standard of living. The idea is that most courts have this view that when you're dealing with child support, they say, well, the child deserves the same standard of living that the child had during the marriage, which is code for bend over, dad, we're going to divorce rape you now. It's completely unrealistic, because what happens is that most families have a 1.5 income. You know, the man has a full-time job, the woman has a part-time job, and then she's taking care of the kids. Well, when you split that family, when it splits up, what happens is there's a huge issue with finances. So, you know, the man is living by himself now. The woman is living with the kids. They need some sort of whatever to survive. She has to go get a full-time job now, put the kid in daycare, all those different things. And then the court says, well, but the child deserves the same standard of living. No, the child doesn't. And unfortunately, this is the reality, is that that's not financially possible. That's a pipe dream. And when you try to enforce a pipe dream, you destroy somebody's life in the trade through onerous child support that is set too high. You're going to destroy the child's life as well, because it has a cascading effect. So I think that the child support fight is an uphill battle, but I think the alimony fight is actually happening today.
Okay, and the child support fight is all state-based too, right? State by state, or other than the
they say it's state to state. But what happens is that under federal mandates, what ends up happening is if the states don't pass certain laws like criminalizing child support, taking away driver's licenses, things like that, they don't get those federal dollars. So they're being bribed to do it.
Yeah, I've seen this in the age of consent for drinking being 21. The federal government's manipulating all the states to push it to 21.
Well, I've got good news for Ultra Magnus. You can, and if you go to gregdoss.com, he's been doing this for a long time. He's figured out a way to go to the court system, but it's not just you going there. Go to gregdoss.com. He's been doing this for a long period of time, helping out a lot of guys overturn child support. It can be done. It's just that things like that are not really, like I say, the information is, like I say, and the game is on the streets. You know, some things you don't need to know about. But if you go to gregdoss.com and get in touch with him, he's going to show you some steps you can take. It's not 100% proof, but he has turned over some child support cases, and he can show you how to do it. So there is a way. There is definitely a solution, guys.
Cool. Guys, we're hitting closing out on the 2-hour mark, and then we should wrap up. And I know it's got to get going in a minute. I appreciate everyone's time today on the panel, contributing to the content. It's been good. Marriage and family for the Red Man has been fun. I know, and you know, everyone else watching this interested in this topic too. You should tune in every other Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Red Man Group Patriarchs, run by Hunter Drew and his crew. They focus more on these topics more consistently, and you can also view on the channel the recordings that they always publish after they go live. We have a few of those as well, of course, from the Patriarch edition of the 21 convention we held earlier this year. You'll see kind of one of those as well, and one of them is already on the channel. It was I think it's currently the trailer on the channel when you load it up. So we're about to round out, guys. Any closing comments? Otherwise, we'll close it down here in just a minute.
Yeah, I'd like to make one. Appreciate you guys and thank you guys for listening. And Anthony, man, you hit the hornet's nest, man. Look, that mean that you put out the other day was so moving that the agents came over here today. Remember, think about this, Anthony. Everything was smoothing out, everything was cool, everything was getting good, and then you want to hit your boy with a left, a right, a uppercut, and a side kick to his face, and then all of his minions who are coddling him and feeding him chicken soup had to come over here. So Anthony, you're doing it right. I just want to commend you. Like I say, man, I told you on the back end. I'm going to tell you now. I tell everybody because I don't kiss ass, but I respect real ass shit. And what Anthony put out was some real, How do I know? Because today is a prime example that you are doing the right thing. Because when the haters realize that the person that they have been worshiping ain't about shit, they're either going to follow it and look deeper into it, or they're going to come at you and attack you for you being real. You have been nothing but real, honest with fucking facts. Excuse my language. Fucking facts. And I didn't even know I didn't ever watch LA Confidential till when I saw what you posted. My wig went back. I'm bald headed. My wig went back because I was like, oh shit. This motherfucker's name after a goddamn movie and you dumb sheep. Oh, that's why, y'all, just want to say this. I'm sorry. Hey, all you guys that are hating on the 21, keep eating your possible burgers thinking that's zebra meat. Keep eating your grass and keep doing what you do because your hate ain't going to stop this motherfucking train. I'm sorry. That's all I wanted to say, bro.
Thank you, Steve.
I think there is an inappropriate response here to what Steve said, and that's this. We now live in an age where there are white knights for men, and yet they say they're heterosexual. I'm just going to put that out there. So when you got a white knight for a dude, and you can see by the dislike ratio, that's the white knight list. That's like the white knight score. So you look at the dislikes, that's the white knight score. So you're white knighting for a dude. Good job. But that said, my lawsuit's going to be moving forward, I should say. And I'm still rebuilding my social media. Those links are going to be, on my website at misandrewtoday.com. And if you want to go and check out the lawsuit and you think it's something you can support, feel free to support the lawsuit on GoFundMe because we want to take it to the Supreme Court if that's where it needs to go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Anthony. It's been great. If you want to get in touch with me to help develop your agency as a man and make you immune to masculine gammas, our male gamma imitate, and also make yourself immune to women's manipulation, talk to me. I'm going to help you with that.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks again for inviting me on. This is a great opportunity, and I really think the whole question of can a man be red pilled and enjoy marriage and actually do this well? Absolutely. It's a pretty powerful thing. And we were kind of pushing in on it, how marriage and family is some of the major building blocks of society, of community. It's a big deal. And if we continue to wreck that, we're going to face some pretty powerful consequences. And I love the idea that we were talking about of really empowering men to rebuild that aspect of our society. And I think it's a powerful thing for men to really latch onto and be able to say, I'm in, I can do this. Let's build our world, build it strong. It starts here. Yeah.
I love that Jack Donovan's fond of saying, start the world.
Start the world.
Start the world. It's a very masculine thing to do that, to create it and to build.
Yep.
Well, everyone, appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing most of you soon in Orlando. Everybody but Noah with his twin babies. Very happy for you, man. Oh, yeah, by the way, closing out personally, I'll be an uncle on Monday. For the first time. Oldest sister's having a baby, so that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I need to go see it. See what happens down there with it. A couple hours for me. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in today. Episode 82 of the Red Man Group on marriage and family. See you guys next week, 11 a.m. And I'll see many of you soon at the 21 convention. All tickets, by the way, are buy one, get one free until October 1st. So you can cut your ticket cost in half, expenses and all that. And hope to see a lot of you guys there soon. We have over 125 guys coming right now to the convention. One of the biggest ones we ever had. See you guys soon, and peace out.
Cool.
Insert hand wave here.